My name is Patty Spees, and I'm the Public Works Director here in Shaker Heights. With me this evening is our Assistant Director, Christian Meyer, and then our contractor representative, Isaac Whitney from Ronyak Paving, Dan Euler, who is with DLZ, and he'll be administering the project. Jason Ronyak is the contractor, Ronyak Paving, and Joe Chuney is our city engineer, who also lives very close to this project.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. I am going to ask everyone to mute yourselves while we're speaking, and we will have the entire evening to answer questions. So if you would do that, that would be appreciated. I just want to kick off this meeting by saying how eager we are to get this project underway, because the road has been in horrible shape for a number of years, but we couldn't get the $2.6 million from the federal government until this year. So that was reason for us to have to wait so long for the project. GPD Group, Joe Chuney, who is our city engineer, designed the project, and Dan with DLZ will be administering the project. I just want to kick the meeting off briefly by saying the city has committed a lot of money this year into street resurfacing, and Chagrin Boulevard is our #1 priority. One thing you will notice, we felt it would be somewhat ridiculous to hanging baskets up and down Chagrin Boulevard this year with the construction going on. First of all, the trucks would probably destroy them, and we couldn't get our watering truck in every day. So we opted to save some money and not put the hanging baskets up and down Chagrin. So that you will notice, I'm sure you've already noticed they're not hanging. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christian Meyer, our Assistant Director, who's going to get more into the meat and potatoes of the project.
Yep, so we have a PowerPoint presentation to help us walk through some of the visuals, and hopefully this will go smoothly. Can everybody see that okay? All right, so actually Dan Euler from DLZ is going to be leading into the introduction, and then Ronyak will be kind of talking about the different phases, and then I'll start talking about some of the special considerations, and then we'll open it up to questions at the end. Dan, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Christian and Patty. Welcome everybody to the public meeting for Chagrin Boulevard resurfacing. Today is June 2nd, 2022. It's just after 6, and as Christian mentioned, we are recording the meeting in case other people who weren't able to join want to see the meeting. So with that, we can go to the next slide. And there's our project team in print, as Patty already explained. Patty and Christian from the city, Isaac and Jason from Ronyak, GPD, Joe, and Nick, who's not on the call, but he's also part of GPD, and myself, Dan Euler, construction manager for the project. Getting into project funding, as Patty mentioned, ODOT is contributing just over $2.6 million to the project. Locally, the city of Shaker Heights is contributing $1 million, and that brings us to a total project cost of $3.6 million. So ODOT is really fronting a lot of the funds for this project, and in doing so, we have to run it to their standards and follow their specifications and get everything that they would require on one of their own ODOT projects because this is a state route. Next slide. Project description. Just before I get into this, one thing that Christian mentioned, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. If anything does pop into your head that you want to bring up, there's a chat box at the bottom. You can type in your comment or your question, and then we can read those at the end too during the Q&A portion. But for anyone who's not familiar with the project, Chagrin Boulevard, also known as Cuyahoga US 422, this project consists of resurfacing slightly less than 2 miles of Chagrin Boulevard from the West Corp limit to Farnsley Road, and then from Helen Road to the East Corp limit. So we're going to skip over that Warrensville Center intersection. The project will include pavement repairs, joint repairs, curb and driveway replacements where warranted, pavement markings. We're also going to be upgrading the curb ramps to be to ADA standards. So that's a big concern, not only with residents, but as we move forward with all of our construction projects in the ODOT process. And also we're going to upgrade pedestrian push buttons. And by doing this, we're going to split the project up into 4 sections. Each section is, you can go to the next slide, Christian, and then that'll kind of help illustrate all the sections that we have here. So we have the 4 sections. Hopefully everyone can see that last section over there to the right, depending on where your gallery is. Section 1 will be from the Western Corp line to Lee Road, right in front of Public Works Building. Section 2 is going to be from Lee to Avalon Road. Section 3 then will stretch from Avalon all the way down to Farnsley. And then Section 4 will be Helen to the Eastern Corp line, kind of over where Colton is. The contractor does plan to mobilize the Section 1 the week of June 13th. So not too far from now, they'll be setting up MOT, and their surveyor will be out there, and you'll just start to see some people in the area. Project signs will be posted, portable message boards. So to summarize what's going to happen in each section, basically every section that you see here on the map is going to have 2 phases. The first phase will be traffic maintained along the curb lanes. And then the second phase will be traffic put inside the middle lanes while the contractor works on the curb lanes. And we have some illustrations to show you that later on. But Section 1 and Section 4 will follow those standards. Section 2, Section 3 will have a detour route for eastbound traffic. That will take you up to Van Aken. So we'll get into that a little bit later on also. But just to go over some of the things that are going to occur in each one of these sections that you see. Basically, we're going to come in and we're going to, Ronnie is going to remove the 3 inches of asphalt. And then we're going to evaluate the base. And we're going to get a good idea of what is happening underneath the asphalt. If there's any deterioration that needs repairs, we're going to mark those out. And then we're going to pave intermediate course, which is just the first layer of asphalt, make it smooth. And then we're going to go in and perform those base repairs that we marked out. We'll also do casting adjustments and any concrete work that we need to do during that phase. After all that work is done, the surface course will be installed and the roadway in that particular section will be finished. We will then move to the second phase in that section. So if we were working in the middle, now we're going to work on the outside lanes, and we're going to repeat that same process we just did. So the summary that I just gave is going to occur twice in every one of these sections that you see. The only quirky thing that doesn't really fit into anything that I just described is Section 1 and Section 2. We're going to put the surface course on. We're going to merge those sections together for the surface course, and that's going to be done at nighttime, just to minimize inconvenience for the traffic volume that we have in that area. So switching over to the next slide, we're going to get into the actual section breakdowns and descriptions, and I'll have Isaac talk us through about what each one is going to entail.
Yeah, so like Dan mentioned, this project's broken into four separate phases. The first phase will be from the Western Corp line to the Lee Road intersection. In that section, we were going to start on the middle 2 lanes, and traffic will be shifted to the outside lanes against the curb. And you'll have 1 lane of traffic flowing in each direction, east and west. Once the center of the roadway has been milled, like he said, we will examine the roadway for any type of base repairs, reference those repairs, and then it's critical that we get the first layer of asphalt on top of the milled surface as quickly as possible to preserve the subgrade. Once that's completed, we'll have casting adjustments, ADA ramps, curb repairs, signage upgrades to do. before we flip phases. So once the middle is under level, we will flip traffic to the middle on the new asphalt, and we will be working against the curb approximately 12 to 14 feet wide on both sides in both directions. Section 1 will be done all during daytime operations. Once that section's all under level, all the casting and curb work, concrete, ADA ramps have been completed, we'll then move to Section 2, which runs from Lee to Avalon. That's the business district. It's very high volume of traffic there. So that section is going to be completed during nighttime paving operations, as well as the Lee Road intersection. That's a very, very busy intersection, and to do that during the day would be absolutely horrendous. So Section 2 from Avalon to Lee will be all done at night following the same procedures, except this section will be completed under a detour, westbound traffic only. Eastbound traffic will be diverted up to Lee, over to Van Aken, all the way down to Farnsley, back down to Chagrin. That detour is going to be in place for quite some time, most of the summer. Section 2 will be split down the middle, half and half. We'll do the south side of the road, north side of the road. Much like phase 1, once everything's under level, then we will surface sections 1 and 2 at night. Put the pavement markings down, and we'll be out of your hair in that section before we move to Section 3. Section 3 is going to be done similar to Section 2. It'll be a detour from Farnsley all the way down to Lee. We'll do the south side of the road first, and then the north side, same fashion. We'll mill it, reference repairs, level, castings, then surface the entire section. Section 4 goes from Helen to the East Corp line. It'll be done similar to Section 1, where we will mill and resurface the inner 2 lanes first, put traffic to the outside curb lanes, 1 lane in each direction. Once the center is completed, then we'll flip traffic to the inside lanes and do the outside lanes. Our goal on this project is to get in and get out as fast as possible while not sacrificing any quality, and putting the traveling public first. Safety is going to be our number 1 concern on this job. We don't want any accidents. We don't want any claims. So there's going to be a lot of barrels, a lot of signage, a lot of bump signs, a lot of raised casting signs, just to ensure that everybody's well aware that this is a construction project, and it takes some time and patience to get it done, but it'll be well worth it once we're finished.
All right, so we went through the different phases and the project schedule. It's very cluttered, but what we're just trying to illustrate here is that this is going to be a project that starts, within the next week, starting June 13th, getting people out there. You're going to see some activity, and it's basically going to last the rest of the year. As the project progresses, we are going to put schedule updates on the construction zone website so that the residents can go there and see when the next phase is going to start. We'll also be handing out resident notifications as we're moving into the next phase. This is construction, so we have a schedule. There's a degree of flexibility because there's some things that we can't control, weather being one of them, and then also the amount of fold-out repairs that both Dan and Isaac had mentioned. So the intent is to be able to finish this project this year. It's a very aggressive schedule, but we have worked with Roniak in the past on Warrensville, and they have done Shaker Boulevard as well. In addition to our road programs, we feel very confident in their ability to perform the work and to meet the project milestones. So kind of gearing this to what the residents are concerned about. Obviously, traffic is a big one, and it's both for the residents and the safety of the workers, making sure that your services are being maintained. This project is not difficult on the surface. The scope of work, I should say, isn't difficult. What makes this challenging is the traffic. As you know, if you live on Chagrin or have traveled Chagrin, you know the amount of traffic that flows through there. And one of the things that we want to stress in this meeting is what the city's going to try to do, as well as DLZ and Roniak, to minimize the inconvenience to both the traveling public and to the residents. So one of the big things that's always a concern is, will city services be maintained? Yes, Public Works is administering this project, and we're going to make sure that your refuse is collected. Leaf collection is going to be maintained. We're going to talk about that in-house as far as how to best manage that and work that with both Roniak and DLZ. Emergency services will not be impeded because of construction. We have had numerous conversations with both police and fire. They're aware of the project. Police are going to be an integral part to helping maintain traffic and make sure that it's running smoothly. Fire Station 1 is right there at Avalon and Chagrin. We want to make sure that if they have to respond, that they are going to be able to get there and not be impeded. There's no question about any of this being an issue. School transportation, to a degree, we're somewhat fortunate with the timing of it, because we'll be able to get a better part of this project done over the summer months. Obviously not all of it. We have been in contact with school transportation, and as we get closer to the fall session starting, we will continue those conversations with school transportation and how they're going to utilize picking up their children. Like I mentioned, we will be providing updates on the construction zone on a regular basis. Obviously, if you have questions, we encourage you to call our office and ask for me. We want to make sure that we can address your questions and to your satisfaction. The other part of this is also the Center of Dialysis. They are aware of this project as well. And we're going to let them know of any traffic changes so that their patients can go in as well. One point of clarification for when Dan opened this up, this is actually a federal highway, which is one of the reasons why we are getting that the federal funds that we have gotten. And it's also important because of the amount of traffic that we get. And that's one of the things that we just wanted to kind of stress. So now it's really the opportunity for the residents that are on here. And again, it's a very small group, so it's a little bit more intimate, that we can have this conversation and listen to your concerns, and we'll have answers for the questions that you do have. There is a comment in the track, and the question is, was there any discussion about how resident streets will be impacted by traffic redirected to avoid the construction zone? How will the police department be managing traffic during at least rush hour? So, I mean, there's, as the project progresses, there's an abundance of traffic signs to help the community navigate how to get around the construction or go through and what to expect. Like I had mentioned, the police have been heavily involved with this. We are going to have officers out there. There's on any big project like this, the maintenance of traffic tends to be, there's fluidity to it, meaning that as we observe the traffic and how people are reacting to the zone, that we can make minor tweaks to improve traffic. And that could be a combination of things. It could be changing the signalization, and I can use Lee Road and Chagrin as the example. In that section between Lee and Van Aken, that there's a possibility that we may end up altering the timing of the light so the traffic can move by more seamlessly. But having said all that, there are limitations, and there are going to be inconvenience, because that's just kind of the nature of the project itself. And we will do what we can to minimize that, but there are limits, because we want to make sure the drivers are safe and that the workers are safe too. So hopefully that answers that question.
A question related to that. How are you going to keep, I live up by Van Aken and Lomond, Chagrin and Lomond. How are you going with all the, I know you're going to put all this signage up, but how are you going to keep people from actually cutting through on the residential streets?
No, that's a good question, and that's a struggle that we have on every large project, and very similar to when we did Shaker. Police is going to have a presence. They will be monitoring that, and we recognize that there's probably going to be people who are going to be using Winslow as a cut through, and as the city engineer who lives on Winslow will testify. He obviously doesn't want that. We don't want that to be happening to you. So if that means that there's going to be an additional more of a police presence on Winslow throughout that project, we're just going to keep tabs on that, and that's how we've handled that in the past.
So you're saying if people want to cut through on Lomond, and you see that happening, there will be police presence to prevent people from doing that?
So, and I'll use the Shaker Boulevard again as an example, where we were having this same problem. And once the police started ticketing people, the amount of traffic that was hitting these side streets decreased significantly. So in addition to Winslow, I mean, police know the community just as well as Public Works do, and understand that Lomond is going to be another area that people are going to be using as a cut through. So they'll be monitoring that as well.
Good.
And just, Christian, if I could chime in too,
Sure.
there's a portion of this project that is paid for by the by ODOT that includes police officers. So although we're mentioning them a lot, I want you to know that that is part of the project. The cost for these police officers, the ones that you'll see out there every single day, is not being covered by your Shaker taxes, but is being covered by the project costs. I just like to say that because sometimes people see and think that the city's paying for all those officers to be there, and it's actually reimbursed by the federal government.
So there was another question that came in that about where residents should report traffic on residential streets. So you can contact either the police department or Public Works. If you contact Public Works, we're going to relay that information to the police department. And that's because they're the ones who are going to be able to send their officers out there as they feel it's needed.
And Christian, let me add, I would encourage the resident to do that. Any of the residents, you could spread the word, because we can't see everything all the time. You guys live there. And if you see people cutting down there too much, let us know. We'll have more police presence out there. Police are happy to do that.
There had been some talk. I live on Chagrin in Sussex Courts, and we have a single drive for both egress and ingress, where there's, we believe, room for a turning lane to enable us to get into the driveway. And I heard that the city was unable to do that. I was wondering if you could comment.
So I can comment on that. First of all, as part of the federal project, this project was advertised publicly last summer, I believe it was, Christian. And there was a time period for comments. We never received any comments from Sussex Court until the project was bid and ready to be awarded. So, and I believe in that instance, there was going to be some type of property that we would need to take from the neighbor, if I'm correct. So that was not, the real estate that you're talking about, that is something that your association could do on their own if they wanted a bigger apron. But if it's your property.
It's not about the apron. It's about our ability to turn into the driveway, because, on some days the road is absolutely filled from Farnsley all the way to Linfield. And
Okay, that's correct. I remember now. So that was the problem. We would need to take part of someone's tree lawn area away to make that.
we don't have tree lawns.
No, the person next to the driveway, I believe.
No, what Molly is talking about is access to the driveways.
It's a single driveway where we go in and out. And if I'm going west on Chagrin and want to turn into my driveway with the other, 30 townhouses that are on the side of the street, I move into the yellow striped area, which I know is illegal, but it allows other westbound traffic to go around me. And we had questioned whether or not you could, I don't know if you stripe the road, but you're tearing the road apart just to give us a few more inches so that we could have a turning lane to go into our drive.
Okay, so that wasn't how it was presented to me, but that was after the design and after the comment period. So,
But how are we supposed to know this stuff? I mean, honest to God, how are we supposed to know when the comment period is and when it applies to us? I just think, you know, there's so many things about the traffic on this road 24 hours a day that are so horrific. And the only answer we ever get is it's a state road and our hands are tied and blah, blah, blah. And in the meantime, there are accidents all the time. I walked from my house to Van Aken one day and nearly got hit by a car 3 different times because people don't stop at the stop signs. They go through the red lights. They make illegal turns. And every time we turn around, the answer we get is it's a state road and there's nothing we can do about it.
so I do know there was an extensive conversation and several meetings with the homeowners association and the police department. I don't want to, a lot of what you're mentioning is more than just a roadway resurfacing. So,
I know that.
and so I don't want to dismiss your concerns, but I know the city has spent a lot of time trying to address them. And there was issues with the timing of the lights. And I just want to correct, it's a federal route. So that has all different implications, even for us. I mean, we can't close Chagrin down, even if we wanted to have like we talked about having a, one time at Shakertown Center, having like a big massive part. We can't do that. The city could not do that. So your concerns a lot are to do with police, you know, and those types of issues as well. All I can tell you is when the issue of making this a little wider came up, the plans were already done. And, you know, I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, it's just frustrating. I've lived in my house for 17 years now. I took a leap of faith to move into this house, and the quality of life here has just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And some of it, you know, the paving, it'll be nice to have a paved road, but it would also be nice. My neighbor got hit by a car trying to cross the street, you know, and the noise is, I know this is not about paving, but I just feel like there is, no matter what we say, the answer we get is, okay, it's a federal road. And it's just very frustrating. And then to be told, well, you know, the time for comments is closed when we didn't even know the time for comments were open.
So again, I'm going to stress that the city has spent a lot of time and has been very open. I don't know. I think Harold, you might have been involved in that call.
And we've had some great discussions.
Right. So,
and the bottom line is, from a traffic point of view, there isn't much anybody can do. The city has made some great attempts at changing the lights and that. But the one thing when Molly talks about the lane, that's not so much for us. When we stop to turn, it stops all the traffic behind us. So it's not us that's really benefiting by this. It's trying to make the flow of the traffic better. And I know Doug talked to several people about putting the turning lane in. And one other question is, all of our, like the one, that same driveway has 30 cars that come in and out of there continuously. Will that be maintained during construction?
Yeah, I can address that if you want me to, Patty.
okay. And I just want to say, Molly, that we have some letters back and forth that I can share with you if you write your email address in the chat that we've exchanged with Sussex Court. So I hear your frustration, but I want you to know that we've been, you know, the city has been working with them to try to do what we can. And I'll be glad to give you those
Well,
letters.
thank you. You know, it's like we have a new sign there. Well, it's a repeat sign. Do not block the driveway. I don't think any driver on Chagrin Boulevard knows how to read because, you know, the driveway is continually blocked all the time. So I'll send you my email. It's just frustrating. And I just feel like no matter, the city says they try and they try and they try, but in fact, nothing changes. It only gets worse. I'm sorry, I'm not happy and I'm venting.
That's fine. I understand, believe me.
So specific to your question about access to your driveway, so you will maintain access to your driveway with the exception of 3 different time periods. The first one being when the road is being, the asphalt is being removed, and that interruption would be, call it 15 to 20 minutes at the most. And we will give advance notification before any one of these activities is going to happen. The next phase or interruption would be when they put that first course of asphalt down. They're going to come through with a big train of trucks and equipment, put that asphalt down. And again, it's about 15 minutes before somebody could get in or out. The last interruption would be when they put the final surface course on, and it's at the same operation as the first course, where they have this big long train of trucks and equipment. It's 15 minutes or so. And again, we'll get advanced notification, and understanding that it is construction, that there are some variables. We'll try as best as we can to give you a good time frame of when that may happen. Before we start this phase, we'll meet with the people at Sussex Court to make sure they're aware of the project, and again, with these type of timing issues.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I'm sorry, I know I'm cranky. We have a problem on the south side of the street with water collecting into sometimes foot-deep puddles at the curb. Well, I know I've mentioned it to, I don't know who, I've mentioned it, Doug's mentioned it. Is there going to be any effort to address that?
So, I mean, within reason, yes. So the city's interest in the contractor's interest is always to get water to move to the nearest catch basin. And there's ways that we can do that by tweaking the elevations. We did look at that specifically during the design because that did come up, that was mentioned. So there are stipulations that the contractor is going to need to follow. The one disclaimer that I would like to say is, we are limited to how much we can do. It's not a full reconstruction of the road, but water flows downhill and the contractor can work their machines to get that to go to a basin ordinarily. Again, it's not a full reconstruct, and we are aware of it, and we're going to work to make sure that there's going to be a minimal amount of water that's standing there. Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
It's going to be a fun summer, isn't it? But I am happy to have it done. It should help the noise. The truck noise hitting bumps and holes is pretty atrocious. So we're hoping that a nice smooth road. Warrensville improved considerably after they repaved it. So we're hopeful that it's going to be much better.
Thank you, Harold. And being a public works nerd, the day that they do put down the final surface course, it is really awesome to see the process, to see all those trucks come in and all that fresh asphalt. So I would encourage you, as we get closer and keep you posted when that occurs, if you're around, to really watch it. It's something to behold, coming from a public works nerd.
How long after they lay the asphalt do they stripe the road?
It's shortly thereafter, depending on the phasing and where we are in the project. There may be temporary markings that are put down until we can get our contractor or our pavement marking contractor to do that. Isaac, I don't know if you want to jump in and mention, typically it's within a couple of days if we're putting down temporary, but we want to have markings down because it's a safety issue if we don't.
Yeah, Molly, we'll typically Within a day or two after the final surface course goes down, we'll put down temporary markings. That allows the striping contractor to come back in to do the permanent. And sometimes there's issues with temperatures, with precipitation that throws their schedule all off. So we'll get the temporary down, schedule them to come out to do the permanent. And typically that's a multi-day process. They usually bring a crew out that does what they call long line striping, which is all of your center line, your edge lines, your long lines. And then they typically will do that first. And then within a day or two after that, they'll do all their short line stuff, which is your turn arrows, your cross hatchings, your stop bars, crosswalks, all of those things. And it's kind of a slow process when you do the short line because you still have to maintain traffic. So you can't paint a crosswalk and expect traffic to go over it, 3 minutes later. So it's a little bit of a process for that. It takes some time to get the final touches on. But that's typically how it goes.
And when you talk about enhanced pedestrian signaling, can you explain what that's going to be?
Yeah. So I mean, if you go to one of the big things when the municipality receives federal funds is making sure that the curb ramps are ADA compliant. So during the design process, GPD went out and evaluated each one of these curb ramps to see if they were compliant or not. And that included the pedestrian, the push button operators and the pedestrian heads. So that's what we're looking at. I'd have to look at the plans because there's quite a few of them where exactly that is. Not each intersection or each ADA ramp is going to have an improvement to the push buttons or the pedestrian heads. But those are the general type of improvements that we're looking at making.
Okay, thank you.
One last.
Yeah. Let me jump in on that, please. Just so you know, ADA stands for Americans with Disability Act. And that's required by the federal government, and it has certain standards, and they keep updating the standards. And one of the things we did with this job is update our ramps to meet the ADA, American Disabilities Act standards. And some of that, and to enhance the pedestrian experience, we did move pedestrian push buttons so they're easier to get to. And then the ramps are going to line up more than they do right now. And that was a requirement. And Christian says not all of them are going to be touched. I bet 90% of them are. So we're touching quite a few of them, and we're going to make them safer and a better experience for the pedestrians. So.
One other question, just I'm thinking this through. So traffic is going to be stopped going eastbound, correct?
Correct.
Westbound. Which way does traffic get stopped for the summer when they're working on it?
Westbound traffic will be maintained between Lee Road and Farnsley, and eastbound traffic will be.
So to get to our driveway, we're going to have to come up Farnsley and turn and go westbound to get to any of the driveways. Okay. That will be interesting, but that's the way it is. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and we do look forward to having a successful construction season. And again, if you have questions, contact Public Works, and we'll walk you through the methodology and why we're doing it. We do have some reasoning behind how we do this, and if you need to or want to have the explanation, just give us a call.
Usually I can't hear anything.
All right. Thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Have
all.
a good evening.
Bye.